just here like 6 months ago, weren't you? Was it like a year now or what? You're kidding me. My time clock is awful. 2 years ago?
Slow down, yeah.
That's terrible. How are you guys? Good, how you doing? Good. In terms of my quick. Awesome. Yeah. I love his hair.
Yeah.
It's natural kind of that way. You were over there? Apparently my mind is... Thanks for being here today. Of course.
It makes you think, doesn't it?
You were like South Carolina?
Yeah, we like to stay around that. Some people really enjoy those scenarios, and then others are like, they don't even want to be involved in them.
Okay. Well, best of luck. Thank you. Pleasure to meet you. You as well. All right, Christian. See the babe. I mean, I don't have to take it. I will.
Hey. Thank you.
You get some teeth out?
Yes, he is.
So, yeah, that's great.
Oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. They do a good job. Yeah.
Crossing my fingers. I'm lucky that that's not. Huh?
Our first two are 8
You had
days.
hands full.
Apple Watch, my pulse.
They're the same age for me.
That's crazy.
What do you do under the
A
scenario?
little bit of a traumatic memory. It was an easy pregnancy because you're by I guess I'm still pregnant. I guess I'm still pregnant. She didn't get sick at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You do. There it is. There it is. There it is.
Well, appreciate you participating in that. Yeah, I think people they don't know what makes the city run on a day-to-day basis. Whether it's
Tried to catch some of it.
Not a lot. Like still attached.
Whatever he wants. No, he said, I don't think any questions are going to answer. I'm like, okay.
Are you leaving so we can do your walk-up music when you come back? Is that...
We could queue up some, Jim.
everyone was worse than
Okay, Travis says we're ready to go. Thank you all for joining us in City Council Chambers, February 18th, 2025. We appreciate everybody here in attendance and everybody watching online. We'll get our meeting started off like we always do with prayer and a pledge. We have Councilman Took will give the motivational message and prayer, and then Councilman Euler will lead us in the pledge. Councilman Took.
All right. Thank you, Mayor. I've been thinking a lot about, with our city lately, leadership, the value of good leaders, how it makes a difference, for good or bad. And I feel like, the city has amazing leaders, from our directors to just within the staff, city council as well. And so I'm proud to be a part of that and learn from them, being new as I am. And so I have a quote I'd like to share tonight about leadership that I thought was pretty good. So let me go ahead and share this with you. It says, a leader is not necessarily a person who holds some formal position of leadership or who is perceived as a leader by others. Rather, a leader is one who is able to effect positive change for the betterment of others, the community, the society. All people, in other words, are potential leaders. Moreover, the process of leadership cannot be described simply in terms of the behavior of an individual. Rather, leadership involves collaborative relationships that lead to collective action grounded in the shared values of people who work together to effect positive change. And that's given by the Higher Education Research Institute. And on that note, I'd like to share a prayer. Our kind Father in heaven, we're grateful to be gathered this evening as residents of Spanish Fork City. We're thankful for this wonderful place and that we have the opportunity to serve and learn to become good leaders. We're grateful for this free country we live in. And Father, we pray for guidance and direction as we do our best to make good decisions and to be good leaders. And please bless us to navigate as civic leaders, being civically engaged the best way possible. Please help us to keep Spanish Fork great. And these things we pray in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Took. Thank you, Councilman Euler. Takes us to item C on our agenda, the oath of office. Chief Johnson is here to introduce us to our newest officer.
Yes, thank you. With the recent retirement of Officer Ballantyne, we were very fortunate to hire Fallon Seddon. Fallon, if you'll come forward, please. Fallon's originally from Santaquin, and he enlisted in the United States Army, where he served at Fort Stewart and then Korea for 9 months. Upon fulfillment of his military obligation, he moved to South Carolina, where he was hired by the Spartanburg County Sheriff's Office, where he served for 2.5 years. He had a desire to return home to Santaquin. He's acquainted with one of our officers. They grew up together, so he came out. He tested with our agency. He went on several ride-alongs. Our officers were very impressed with him. He's doing a great job on FTO. I've heard lots of good things, very positive comments. He's a great asset to our police department, so we're just welcome to have you here. Congratulations, and we look forward to working with you. So upon that, I'll let you administer the oath of office.
Does he want to give a 2-minute speech or anything?
He can, and he already has the Spanish Fork twang.
Okay,
so.
He's got that. Yeah.
Just say you're excited.
Well, I don't really know what to say. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for, hiring me on, and so I can work for this great city. Seems like a very good place to be. So, again, thank you guys.
Very good. Thank you. All right, I'll come down there.
Okay.
Tell us if we're good in the camera. There, you got us. Okay, so repeat after me. State your name after I say I. I
Fallon Seddon,
solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will, to the best of my ability
that I will, to the best of my ability
and with the highest level of integrity,
and the highest level of integrity,
serve the people of Spanish Fork City
serve the people of Spanish Fork City,
and preserve, protect,
and preserve, protect,
and defend the Constitution
and defend the Constitution
of the United States
of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Utah.
and the Constitution of the State.
Congratulations. We don't hold it against people being from Santaquin. If they were from Payson, it'd be different. But Fallon, you're in the clear, buddy. Thank you. Good stuff. Okay, takes us to item D of our agenda, public works. Mr. Corey Pierce will talk to us about this.
Christian, come on up if you would. Every fall, the Public Works Division has an annual report where our divisions get to report on the things they've done over the last year. And as part of that, we have a banquet and award a Division of the Year, just recognizing efforts and things that have been collected over not only that year, but the past several years. So this year, we wanted to present the airport with the Division of the Year. If you've driven up north lately and you see what's going on at the airport, they're very busy. And Christian, our airport division manager, works with 3 part-time employees to keep the airport running. And that says a lot. We've got Wade Roberts, Adam Bunker, and Kiel Stamminger that work with him. Our part-timers weren't able to be with us tonight, so Christian will get to represent them, but I'll read quickly a summary of some of the things the airport's been doing. The airport division is being recognized as the Division of the Year for its outstanding accomplishments in strategic leadership. A key achievement is the division's financial independence, having eliminated its reliance on subsidies from the general fund. This demonstrates not only fiscal responsibility, but also the division's capacity to sustain itself and invest in growth. The airport has experienced substantial expansion, notably doubling the number of hangars and the expansion of the airport footprint, all while maintaining the same workforce, which speaks to its efficiency and effective resource management. The division has also been proactive in securing grants and finding creative ways to finance both current needs and future growth. Innovation is evident in the development of in-house light coupling repair capabilities, which has streamlined operations and reduced costs, ensuring long-term sustainability. Additionally, the division has crafted a thoughtful proposal to charge heavy users, such as fixed-based operators and specialized aviation service operators for their impact on airport resources. This proposal reflects a balanced approach to adjusting ground lease fees and other considerations to support the airport's growth while maintaining fairness. Further demonstrating its success, the division has successfully carried 3 major contracts across the finish line this year, showcasing strong project management and execution. The growth of the Wings and Wheels event, which has become a significant community event, is another highlight. Its increasing scale and impact not only draw attention to the airport, but also provide valuable community engagement and support local tourism. Lastly, the division has made significant strides in refining its policies and procedures, ensuring smooth operations and positioning itself for future success. Through these numerous achievements, the airport division has proven itself as a leader in innovation, efficiency, and community involvement, making it a deserving receipt of Division of the Year recognition. So with that, I don't know how we usually do this. Probably award this to Christian and let you give your congratulations. And if you want a speech out of Christian,
We want a speech.
he brought his family to hear him speak. So.
Are there any employees as well, or just Christian?
There are tonight. There is just Christian.
Okay.
So the others are having babies or.
Will you just read their names and make
Yes.
sure we know who they are?
Adam Bunker, Kiel Stamminger, and Christian Davis. Wade Roberts. Guess I had to give you the right one, Christian.
Well, thanks for having me tonight. Again, thanks to Corey and City Administration for the award. It's very much appreciated by my employees and myself. I think working for Spanish Fork City and specifically at the airport, I think the airport's not only a bright spot in Spanish Fork, but also in the Utah aviation community. So it's really exciting to work in such a fast-paced, growing environment. You know, a lot of airports are really stagnant or just develop slowly. So I think the growth of the airport just speaks to the growth of Spanish Fork as a whole. So it's a pleasure to work down there.
Congratulations, Christian. You're doing a great job. You're well-deserved accolade.
Yeah.
I'll mention as well, we usually have a plaque to share, but we didn't quite get them made in time, so we're working on that and take them to them at a later time. So,
I think Jack will want a picture of you two standing up here, but we'll give you a round of applause before you go up here.
Thanks.
And is this your better half in the back there?
It is.
All right. Thank you, too. And, yeah, that little addition right there.
He looks just like you, Christian.
Mayor, it might be worth noting with the development that's happening there, Christian is already working on securing some additional funding for Taxiway Bravo, and I think I bring that up here not because it's secured by any means, as we know we're just starting that, but even some of the airport users, as they might be listening and wondering, you know, what are we doing about all the growth? We're working hard to get the funding that we hope for Taxiway Bravo. We know is there several years out to try to get that advanced to even, you know, maybe next year, within a few years. So we're actively working on trying to do that, and I think we've got a pretty good beat on at least a decent portion of that. Is that fair to say, Christian? So good work on that one, on that front, trying to keep that growth measured with the addition of that Bravo taxiway that would be on the north side of the runway.
Well, and that doesn't happen without good leadership down there, without good full-time and good part-time help. But it does speak to what you're doing down there, that we're even able to look at that funding in the future and that growth. So good work. Couldn't be happier with what's going on down there, and we appreciate your hard work. And we know it's a team effort, too. Somebody's taking care of everything. Yeah, while he's down at the airport. He's not playing down there all the time, I promise. She's like, I don't know, he might be. Thank you. Okay, that takes us to the public comment section of the agenda tonight. Anybody from the public that would like to address the mayor and council? Yes, please come up. And doesn't have to be on the agenda. You can address the mayor and council.
Mayor, council members, do I need to say my name?
Yes, you do.
I do. Okay, sorry. Wendy Osborne from Tabitha's Way Local Food Pantry. Good evening. I want to say first off, thank you so much to each of you, also to our all the departments that work for our city, as well as our citizens, just for everything you guys have done to help support Tabitha's Way. I was thinking about it this evening, that it's nearly been 15 years since the first time I came to Spanish Fork City Council and addressed Tabitha's Way, the existence of Tabitha's Way and what we'd be doing. Tonight, I just wanted to share a quick report and share two events that are coming up. A quick report, just wanted to let you guys know. Oh, it just went away again. Trying to figure out how to use my phone. So Tabitha's Way last year provided food assistance to 4,651 households from Spanish Fork, which equaled 14,418 citizens in our community. And so that's just from Spanish Fork. It doesn't include the surrounding areas. We are honored and blessed to do this work, but we know that we don't do it alone. We're so grateful for the support of the city and many of the city employees that also donate and help and volunteer, and from the residents here. We couldn't exist or do what we do without your help. With that being said, we wanted to share that we have scheduled a date for our ribbon cutting for our new building. Tabitha's Way moved into our new location across the street at 50 East, 100 North in Spanish Fork, and we wanted to extend an invitation to our city leaders as well as the entire Spanish Fork city employees and our community to come celebrate this moment, because it's been 15 years in the making to get to this big building, and we're so not specifically this building, but 15 years in the making of everything that has led up to this moment, and we're so grateful for it. And so we're planning a ribbon cutting on March 27th at 10 a.m. and wanted to invite the community out to come celebrate this. I dropped off a little card. If you could RSVP and let us know if you can make it, we'd love that, to know who's coming so we can make sure we have everything set for everyone. But we would love for you to come celebrate this moment with us together. So, and then secondly, we have upcoming in March. On March 15th is the Feed Utah Food Drive. It's a statewide food drive, and Tabitha's Way will be participating in that as well. You'll see some information going up on our website and on social media about that. But Spanish Fork, Tabitha's Way will be handling the Macy's location in Spanish Fork will be a drop-off. Tabitha's Way in Spanish Fork will be a drop-off, and also Macy's in Santa Quin will be 3 drop-off locations where you can drop off your food donations for Tabitha's Way. As you know, we receive a lot of food donations during the holidays, but then as the spring, we go into spring, we typically see a dip in food donations, and then during the summertime, it's very, very low. So the food donations we gather from the Feed Utah Food Drive is essential to us being able to provide the amount of food for the families coming in during the summer and spring months. And so we're just asking for our community to help continue to support through those food drives and drop off those food donations, because it makes a big difference. So thank you all again for everything you do and for your support. Any questions?
Thank you, Wendy.
Questions
Congratulations
for Wendy?
on your move.
Thank you.
It's a big deal.
Thank you. Looking forward to seeing you all there.
Seth, and maybe this is a question for Jordan, but reminded last month when Lieutenant Governor was down here to tour your facility that employees, Spanish Fork employees, have the option to donate part of their pay to Tabitha's Way. And when I told her that was happening with our employees, it was pretty touching that she didn't know that before. And I know you know that, Wendy, but it's pretty cool that we're supporting the pantry, that's supporting citizens and everything here, and our employees are doing that too. So another shout out to our awesome employees that give a part of their check to the local food pantry. It's pretty cool stuff. Lots of cool stuff happening down there, and it's credit to you. Can't believe it's 15 years. That was a blink of an eye stuff, but yeah, very good stuff. Okay, any other questions for? Okay, sorry, we're still in public comment. Anybody else from the public that would like to come up and address the mayor and council? We have a couple of public hearings tonight. They're later on the agenda, so if you're here for those will be coming up later. Okay, seeing none, we'll move to council comments tonight, and we'll start on the end with Councilman Marshall and move this way, if that's okay. Mr. Marshall?
Thank you.
Yes.
I have no comments tonight.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
Yep. Councilwoman
I
Beck.
do not have any comments either.
Okay. Councilman Euler.
Keep
Just a couple of things. Yeah, sorry.
Gotta make up for both of them.
Yep.
Just to report on a couple of the committees that I sit on. Mountain Eagle Water, we had our board meeting a week ago where we discussed some of the major water projects that we're working on in South County. They've got some projects they're working on to be able to deliver water all the way out to Mona and Genola and other areas. So those are coming along. And then we also discussed this time of year with the legislature in session. We talked about there's quite a few water bills that we're keeping an eye on with conservation and what they're trying to do with the Great Salt Lake. We're trying to make sure that it doesn't affect negatively any of the agriculture water and other things that we need in our area. So keeping an eye on those. Had the opportunity to attend the Senior Center member mill, which is always a treat and a pleasure. And one more One more public service announcement. If you're a senior in our community and you are not attending the senior center and participating in those meals, you are missing out. We want you there. It's a great opportunity to socialize, to feel like you're a part of something. So come down anytime. Mondays and Thursdays are their meals, and then the first Friday of every month is their member meal. We, at our last member meal, had the chance to show them the rec center video that we saw in last council meeting, where they announced the new name, the Fit City Center. There is a lot of excitement building down at our senior center for this new building, this opportunity that they'll have to include more people as they'll have more space. And so a lot of excitement there. And then final thing I've got, Mayor, is just to congratulate, since I've got a wrestler on the Spanish Fork wrestling team, I've got to congratulate our Spanish Fork Dons, who took state in wrestling again this year, 2 years in a row. So great job to those student athletes and to the coaches that were able to achieve a very large accomplishment. So that's all I've got, Mayor.
I'm hoping we're getting them in here soon in the near future when we can have them come to council meeting and get a picture and everything.
That'd be awesome.
And who do we? It was a close one. You were keeping us.
Us and Box Elder. Box Elder, after day one, we were behind by half a point, and then we ended up winning. I think it was 19 points total. So
awesome.
So it was close. It was good contest. And then Wasatch came in third.
Very good. Tough kids at Spanish Fork High that have quite the heritage of doing it, and now it's 2 years in a row.
Yep.
Good stuff. Okay, Councilman Cardin.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. One of the boards I have the privilege to serve on this year is on the ULCT, or the Utah League of City and Towns, and get to talk about lots of legislative things that are going on. If you are still not aware, the legislature is in session. There are lots of bills happening. Our city manager gets to spend a lot of time up at the Capitol right now, and I think he may talk about some of the bills that we're talking about, but please, if you have concerns, if you have questions about bills that are being ran, please reach out to our local representatives, Representative Barton, White, and then Senator McKell. They are all very responsive. They do listen. They do have a lot of bills that you may have questions on that they will try to help answer them. They do have interns that help them as well. But please take the time to see what's going on, because these things that they do affect us, and they do play a part in our life. So please just pay attention to what's going on there. Next, one of the other committees I get to serve on is the Youth City Council. Last Thursday, so the day before Valentine's Day, they spent an hour together putting together some Valentines. You're all right there. And they put together all these Valentines. Do you know how many high school kids we have, Mayor? Do you remember how many it was?
How many
Valentines we do? Yeah.
Yeah. What is it? Totals up to about 7,200, I want to say, between all the schools, something like that.
I don't think it was quite that high. No, like Maple Mountain's 1,800 and Spanish Fork was 1,700.
Okay, so
she hasn't got the politics thing. You always double.
Oh, okay.
So 6,000.
Yeah, you go. Yeah.
We'll say 6,000.
Okay.
So they put together these Valentines, and they taped the suckers to it. And you can play it without the sound, maybe there, Jack. And they took a lot of time to do this, but then one of the cool parts that we get to do is we get to take them to the high school students. And it's a way that we can show them that they're loved, make sure that high school kids go through a lot of stuff in life, and let them know that their community loves them. One thing that was pretty impactful to me this year is I handed it to one kid at Spanish Fork High School, and he looked up at me and he said, "I have never received a Valentine since I was a little kid. Thank you so much." And I don't know, it meant the world to me. It was worth every effort that went into this event and every heartache that went a part of the process. But please let those know around you that you love them, that you care for them. We don't know what they're going through. We don't know what's happening. But this is, an opportunity for us to just share a little bit of the love that the city has for these high school kids. Pete and Travis and their team have put together this video. Please go to Spanish Fork, the YouTube page, watch it. It's about 5 minutes long, so it's a little bit longer. But just a great event that, Mayor, that you've put together, using another high school kid's example and keeping that tradition going. So thank you for letting me be a part of that, and thank you to the U City Council for doing all the heavy lifting to make sure that part of it happened. So that's all I got, Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilman Cardin. Appreciate that. Councilman Took.
All right, thank you, Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Just a couple of committee reports. With the Chamber of Commerce, some exciting things going on, so a couple announcements here. Our business of the month this month is Prime IV Hydration. Details on their celebration will be coming soon. Also, we have a February noon networking event hosted on February 20th, coming right up here on this Thursday. It'll be at the Hampton Inn, and R&R Barbecue will be hosting with food, sponsoring it for the lunch. We'll also be hearing a presentation from Revolution Financial Management. It should be very good. We also have Bills and Bagels having to do with the legislative session we've been talking about a little bit tonight. Bills and Bagels will be on March 1st at 7:30 a.m. at the Nebo School District Boardroom, just south of us here, a couple blocks. And then this last week we had our Chamber Board Chamber Board meeting, rather, and Chris Thompson, our old Public Works Director, was there. It was fun to see him again and hear him talk about the Main Street project. In fact, there's an open house to the public tomorrow morning, and all are welcome. And if you have any questions about that, please reach out. Last chamber item I have for you is the upcoming Easter egg hunt hosted by the Chamber of Commerce, and this has become definitely a fun tradition in Spanish Fork over the years. This will be on April 19th. More details to come, but put that on your calendar. It's early in the morning, and it is a lot of fun, especially if you've got little kids or grandkids. And then the last item I've got relates to the Miss Spanish Fork program. We have the Miss Spanish Fork pageant this coming Saturday on the 22nd. You can see this beautiful flyer here we've got for it. Tickets will be $8 at the door, and we've got some amazing young ladies ready to compete, working very hard for the scholarships that are provided, and we're just excited to support them. And we've had an amazing royalty this year, and so I invite you all to come and check it out. You won't be disappointed. And that's all I've got, Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, Councilman Took. Appreciate that. Okay, takes us to item 6, staff reports. Any staff reports that we need to catch up from last council meeting?
Yeah, let's touch on what Councilman Took just mentioned in terms of tomorrow, a couple of public meetings. The meeting in the morning is focused on Main Street businesses, so not the general public for that one, but we did target the businesses along Main Street to want to have a conversation with them directly and specifically about impacts there. So there's a public open house. Corey, do you want to speak to this?
Yeah, Jack's got the flyer up for the public open house tomorrow, 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. here in the library, Heritage Room next door here to the City Council chambers. We'll have boards with concept ideas, things that the design team's looking at, scroll plots of what it might look like, and we really need the public's input to help us understand the needs and wants and how we can make Main Street continue to be an important part of our town. So just like to invite everyone to be there. There's also, you'll see on the flyer, a website. It is u.input.utah.gov/Spanish Fork, Maine. And on that website, you'll see any new information, as well as you can sign up, add your email address, and anytime there's updates, you can get those updates and share thoughts in that forum as well. So really, we just want to see a lot of the public come out, share their thoughts, ideas, and concerns with us so we can get it right. So thank you.
Mayor, a question. Thank you, Corey. A question for you. We've never done this before. I was chatting for a brief moment before a council meeting with Councilmember Marshall, but we've never had a section in our agenda during the legislative session where we talk about bills and maybe have some dialogue about issues that we're focused on as a city and maybe positions we want to take and conversations we want to have. It's too late to put anything on the agenda for tonight, but we could certainly do that for our council meeting the first week in March. That would help me to remember if we wanted to do that next year. I'm not bringing this up as we've got to do it, but if it's something you're interested in doing, we could add that as during the session, maybe the second meeting in January and then the meetings in February and that first meeting in March. have it as a discussion item where we can just talk about bills, if that's something that's of interest to you.
That sounds like a terrible idea.
600 plus bills. Yeah, let's do it one by one.
Yeah. We're as cities, we're tracking over 220 bills.
Wow.
And that does not mean every bill has the same level of tracking, of course. But we are tracking 220-ish bills right now. And there are still a few bills that will come out that have significant impacts on cities, so there will be more than the 220.
So, Seth, would you just choose maybe one or two, maybe three to quickly discuss?
Yeah, I would probably pick those, but then also if there are issues or topics you're thinking about, you could put those on our radar and we could find those kinds of bills. And
so, Seth, are you thinking kind of like a debate up here, and we'll just kind of debate the bill and see what we think?
I'm all in for that. Yeah. I think for me, one of the challenges, and one of the things I'm always interested from you is as we get into some of these issues, especially towards the later end of the session, there are conversations that we will want to have as a city with legislators. And as you reach out to Senator McKell or a Representative Burton, if you have some base and understanding of where that bill has been, what it's talking about, and where it's potentially going, I think you can express those thoughts more completely and better as you do that. So I want to arm you with whatever you want in terms of the legislative session. So if that's of interest to you, we can do it. If it's not, we don't have to.
I'll echo. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good idea to probably do it once or twice during the session. Seems like sometimes you can have some of the middle of the session bills that are started and then debated and maybe even passed, and then the end is pretty fast and furious, and so gets a lot of different coverage for our residents that are probably watching TV and seeing what's this about that's now made some headlines. Yeah. I will tell you this, and Councilman Cardin mentioned it already. We have good responsive representatives in Spanish Fork. We're lucky to have that, and I don't know, maybe the rest of the state, they're that good as well. But Senator McKell, Representative Burton, and Representative White, for those on the east side of the tracks, just good people that are responding to emails and texts and phone calls with questions you might have. I will tell you, too, the work that's done between cities and the legislature. Seth pulled into the parking lot late today, and I told him it looked like he had legislature face, and it was legislature face, which was halfway disgusted, halfway mad, and exhausted. But it's part of the give and take. You hear your state officials all the time say how much they don't like the federal government controlling what happens in a state, because we think we're pretty successful at a lot of stuff in the state. Similar interactions sometimes with cities that, hey, we can figure out a lot of stuff locally and try to push back on some overreach, try to collaborate where it makes sense as well. We do a good job of it. Staff does a good job of it. Your elected officials do a good job of it, and we have good elected officials to work with as well. So I think it's a good idea to discuss it up here. I would say after the session, we might be have a better chance at having a legislator come talk to us if we wanted, right? Yeah. And that way we can blame whatever's happened on them right in front of us.
Yeah, if you want, we can reach out to our representatives and senators right now and ask them to put maybe the second, I guess the third Tuesday, our second council meeting in March.
Yeah.
Put it on their agenda and see if they could put it on their calendars. We'll put some time on our agenda to talk to them.
Would we really want 3 local politicians all in one meeting?
You mean 9?
Yeah. Right, but 3 additional besides us?
Up to you. I'm asking. I'm not telling. I'm asking.
Choose one. Pick one.
Great. Now I
one that doesn't like to talk a lot.
You did say the word politician and not talk a lot.
It's not on the meeting.
They're probably tired. After this 45-day run, they probably
They'll be quick.
Thank you.
That's it.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Seth. I do want to touch on that meeting tomorrow and with Councilman Marshall's history with UDOT. We're always talking to citizens. Main Street is a UDOT road. We collaborate very well with them as a city. They're in constant contact with us. I guess, Councilman Marshall, from your professional life, past life as a UDOT career guy. Maybe emphasize these meetings. Does it really matter if people show up and talk about it, and maybe what you've seen in other places in the state, specific main streets, the ideas of trying to improve Main Street to not become something else.
Sure. Thanks. Put me on the spot.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I appreciate that. I think it's a good conversation, Mayor. The one, coming to those meetings matter. It really does. Everyone there is interested to hear what the public has to say, what the business owners have to say along Main Street. They want to make sure that if something is done, they incorporate as much of that feedback as they can into it, so the project, like Corey said, is correct, that we do something that is actually beneficial. The department sort of ebbs and flows on what they want to see on a Main Street. You go to somewhere like Brigham City, where their Main Street is really downtown Brigham, not a ton of pass-through traffic through there, and so they're more open to making it really about Main Street and downtown. You come to ours, and there's a lot of folks that are just going through our community, right? They're just going past. And so there is a bent towards how do we move that much traffic. So there's a few things you may not be able to do. But I think a good example of what is possible is just go over Springville. Their Main Street is very similar to ours, and they have traffic from Mapleton and other communities that use it. But they were able to do something and make it more walkable, more friendly. So I think that's a good example of what can happen. I think there's a potential on ours to go a little bit further, even if we wanted to, and sort of make it a place that you want to be. Today, it's not the most friendly place to walk along, and this is an opportunity to sort of change the downtown structure and make it a place where people want to be and come and shop and live and recreate as well. Take some pressure off the north end of our community and put some people and businesses on Main Street. So I think the department's going to be super open to it. I know Corey's group is going to be super open to ideas and opportunities on our Main Street, and I think come and express them. Come and share your concerns about doing something. There will be a talk at some point about narrower lanes. I like them.
I know you do.
As council member knows. There are a lot of competing issues or competing uses on our Main Street. A lot of them. It's super wide. It moves a lot of traffic. People want to be there. They want to walk. They want to park. They want to bike. Like there's a lot of competing issues down there. So it's going to be a balancing act, and Corey's going to have a difficult time balancing that. I think we are going to have a difficult time of setting the priorities on how to balance that. And so if we don't hear from you, it'll be more difficult to make that balancing, to have that balance. So my 2 cents.
Perfect. Thank you. Remember, this is a kickoff meeting to inform businesses in the morning, residents in the evening. So please, if you have an opinion about Main Street, please come to that meeting. There's going to be more meetings in the future as well, but this is your heads up. There's going to be some things that change about our Main Street. So be involved and help us change them. Okay, if there's no other staff reports, moves us to item 7 on our agenda, the consent items. Only A and B on the consent agenda, minutes from our annual work session and minutes from the previous council meeting. I'd entertain a motion on those consent items.
I move to approve the consent items.
Motion made by Councilman Took.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Beck. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Consent items are approved. It takes us to the public hearing section of our agenda. We have items A through C on this agenda. The first one deals with Condor Heights zone change and development agreement approval. Mr. David Anderson.
Mr. Mayor, thank you. This is the subject property, just over 4 acres, located on 3400 East, kind of sandwiched in between 3400 East and the railroad tracks that make up the city's eastern boundary, right up against Highway 89. So that's what we're talking about, property over near a boundary with Mapleton, outlined there in yellow. Please note the unique shape of the property. I'll talk more about that in just a minute. Also, perhaps here, let's talk about the railroad tracks that follow the eastern side of the property. I think everybody on the council is aware that Spanish Fork has been working for a number of years to get all of the requisite parties together to be able to consolidate the two rail lines that we have in this part of the community into this corridor. So right now there's the set of tracks that follows State Route 51, I think it is, coming down from Springville. And then they turn and follow Highway 6 as they go. If they're going east towards Spanish Fork Canyon, there's that rail line that we're working to have fit adjacent to this rail line, the rail line that just follows 89. Again, if you're going east towards Spanish Fork Canyon. Does that make sense?
Yep.
With that, we need additional space. And just to kind of cut quickly to the chase, this is the proposed subdivision. It's a preliminary plat that, in fact, the Planning Commission approved in their last meeting. Now, their approval is entirely subject to the City Council doing two things tonight. One, approving a zone change from rural residential to R115, and also approving a development agreement. The development agreement would be approved as a legislative act by the City Council, and it would allow for two specific and only two deviations from our zoning code. It would do something that typically we do with the master planned development overlay. In this case, the subject property is not large enough to qualify for that particular approval. The minimum size is 5 acres for master plan development. Again, this is just over 4. And in this case, the two deviations involve approving an agreement. Hey, there we go. It's not exactly what I wanted to use, but for this lot right here, the triangularly shaped lot, it does not meet our lot depth requirement, which is 125 feet in the R115 zone. Nonetheless, there is I would say, very large, you could say fairly large, building envelope that still exists to put a home on that lot. The fact that it doesn't meet our lot depth requirement is partly because we measure that as the average between the point where it's the least and the point where it's the most, and just by way of its shape. The math is what it is, and it doesn't work. So as proposed, the development agreement would accommodate a deviation to allow for less lot depth. Now, and I don't want to beat this to death, but another factor in it not meeting the lot depth is the fact that we have asked the applicant to set aside this space here for the future rail expansion. You can see just from that image the area that has that slightly blue tint to it. It's not a small space. And again, that definitely impacts just the math on meeting that lot depth requirement. The other modification from our typical zoning standards comes with this existing home. We want the applicant to dedicate right-of-way for the future expansion of 3400 East, which as it goes north, kind of curves somewhat maybe to parallel the railroad tracks, tying eventually to First South. That's going to be a fairly significant connection for us. And again, we're asking the applicant to set aside space for that. When they do that, that home then fails to meet our front setback requirement. There's still a space there, but it doesn't meet that requirement. So those two things are the purpose for the proposed development agreement. We explained that to the Planning Commission. I think they understood well what was at play there. The zone change, it's consistent with everything that's been discussed, but for maybe Quiet Valley. On the east side of Spanish Fork Parkway, south of First South, the lots actually are quite large. Again, one of them in particular has a unique configuration. And I'll mention this. as proposed, the applicant would be dedicating this land for the expansion of 3400 East, just simply by way of a needed, not a donation, dedication, that would become city property. And the applicant would not be compensated for that land. However, for the right-of-way conveyance, I'll say for them giving that to the city for the future rail expansion, they would be compensated fair market value, and those funds would come from project funds that exist with our effort to do the rail expansion. Those funds are administered by Mountain Land Association of Governments, and we've used that fund for the exact same thing that we've done with other properties that abut that rail line. You have any questions?
Dave, can you remind me what current setback requirements are, and what, with this exception, how close would that house be to the road?
Yeah, let me double check that.
I think it's 15, but I can't remember for sure.
That was 25.
Is it 25 from the front?
Yeah. It's typically 25. I wanted to check to see if by chance with the R115 zone it's any deeper. It wouldn't be less than 25, and I believe the home would have 15 feet as the front setback. So that's at least the ballpark of what we're talking about.
Thank you.
Any more questions for Dave before we ask the applicant to come up and then go to public hearing? Okay, thank you. Is the applicant here if they'd like to speak to this before we go into public hearing?
Mayor, Council, Mark Hampton. You know my address?
We don't need your address.
Okay, don't care about my address. Dave did a great job explaining. Just one comment about the setback on that house. As you remember, the dedication has the park strip that's quite large. So even though it's 15 feet, I think with the sidewalk and then the big landscape, it's quite setback from travel traffic of the road. And so we concur with everything Dave said and the staff and Planning Commission. Any questions I can answer on this one?
Not yet.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
I just ask. I'll jump back up.
All right. Appreciate you. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing for item A.
Move that we go into public hearing.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilman Marshall. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item A. Anybody from the public that would like to speak to this item? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Cardin.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Took. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Discussion back up here. Any other questions for the applicant or for Dave, staff on this?
We're asking a lot from the applicant on this one.
Yeah, we are. They're giving up a lot.
Yeah.
I know that the applicants have been working on this for a while, and I thank them for figuring something out with the city, and the city staff also working with them, trying to make something work, because it is a unique piece of land. If you've been over there, it's hard. It's a hard area to try to develop this, so thank you.
Yeah, no concerns.
Hard area. Working with the railroad's just super easy. It's never any issues at all.
Yeah. Almost as easy as UDOT, right?
Yeah.
On the right-of-way for the railroad dedication, so is it, you all are setting back. Are we paying them now during this, or is it a transaction later when the project comes? Just curious.
It will come after the property has been appraised,
Okay.
and that market value identified, and the funds actually provided by Mountain Land Association of
We're
Governments.
going to go through that negotiation now.
I believe we're in the process of starting.
Appraisal's been ordered from a UDOT appraisal, and so the process is in process. It'll be the appraised value, and then work. Yeah, I appreciate what you said. It's with the dedication of that railroad. That's over an acre. We lost a lot out of the project, so it's been difficult to make this work. So thank you for recognizing that.
Anything else? Okay. I'd entertain a motion for item A.
I move that the proposed ordinance for the Condor Heights zone change and development agreement be approved based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. One, the proposal is consistent with the city's general plan designation of estate density residential. The existing conditions make the proposed subdivision layout impossible without deviation from the current code, that the development agreement outlines the needed modifications to development standards and conditions, the applicant meet the city's development and construction standards and other applicable city ordinances.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Councilman Cardin, seconded by Councilman Marshall. A roll call vote here. Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Item A is approved.
Can we
Appreciate
just
that.
discuss? I don't have any concerns about this particular one. That second finding, I think it's very, very true in this case. I think it's a finding that we should be very reluctant to have moving forward. Just to say that it's impossible given this, well, the answer would be don't do this.
Right.
Right. So in this particular case, I think it applies very well, but I think we should just be very cautious about applying that finding to future decisions. Does that make sense?
Yep.
You all? Yes. Okay.
That finding be more included in a regular overlay discussion, if that's going to be applicable to something like this.
And to provide context, just by way of how often the development agreement tool has been used, this is the second time. We do not prefer to go down that path. That really was our only option here.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. I'm not arguing in this case at all. It just, that's to me is a finding that can be found a lot if we're not careful.
Slippery slope.
Yes, very.
Yep.
So, thanks.
Good point. Appreciate that. Appreciate that discussion. Thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. Okay, takes us on to item B, ordinance for the Canyon Court zone change.
Once again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Subject property in this case is on the northeast corner of the intersection of Spanish Fork Parkway and 400 North. Talked about this property a little bit in recent years by way of potentially doing a mixed-use project on this site. Again, try to make a long story short, the applicant has proposed a preliminary plat, I believe 7-lot preliminary plat, which the Planning Commission approved in their last meeting. Like with the last application, subject to the City Council ultimately approving a zone change for the property. And the applicant is moving forward with the intention of developing the entire property in a manner that's consistent with our Commercial 2 zone. So from my perspective, that harkens back to when the property was annexed and the city's intent for the property from day one. In this case, the site is a little bit unique in that it's comprised of 2 parcels. Approximately 4/5 of the property is already zoned Commercial 2, but there is a relatively slender parcel that runs between the portion of the site that is zoned Commercial 2. I think it shows up best here. The red color is Commercial 2. You can kind of see the townhomes to the north. That is zoned R3. And then there is that maybe no man's land in between that is also zoned R3. I'll go through the history of that with you if you want me to, but without hearing otherwise, let me just say that the intent has been to have all of the property south of the townhome zone Commercial 2. So we're at that point now with that change. It's the last matter that needs to be addressed before the applicant can move forward, submit an actual, we call it a final plat application, the application that would lead to them being able to subdivide the property, convey different lots to different parties, finalize contracts and agreements with potential users of lots or tenants and that type of thing. They're on the site. It's an exciting time for me, having observed kind of what's gone on with this site for quite a while. We're hopeful that a zone change, for example, tonight will lead to development here that really benefits this part of the community.
Quick question, Dave. Just making sure I understand. So we're just rezoning just that little sliver of no man's land that we're talking about, and so the whole parcel will be C2 at this point, is what we're looking to do.
Exactly.
We're not doing a different type of zoning for maybe potential mixed use at this point?
That is correct.
Okay. Because I know that had been a discussion in the past, so I just want to make sure it was clear.
Yeah, before that got really close to the finish line, and things simply went a different direction.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dave before we open it up? Thank you, Dave. Is the applicant here that would like to speak to this before we go into public hearing? Okay, we might call you up for questions if that's all right. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Marshall. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item B. Anybody from the public that would like to come up and speak about the Canyon Court zone change? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Councilman Cardin, seconded by Councilman Euler. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Discussion back up here. Any questions for the applicant or staff on this zone change?
No, I know you've been working for a long time to try and do something with this property, so hopefully with this change you're able to move forward and get something done.
Okay. If no other discussion about this, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that the proposed ordinance for the Canyon Court urban zone change be approved based on the following findings. That the proposal conforms to the city's general plan designation of commercial, that the proposal provides for a new commercial center at a major intersection, and that the proposed commercial center is adequately sized to minimize the impact on the residential character of the area.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Euler, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. Roll call vote here. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilman Cardin?
Yes.
Councilman Took?
Yes.
Councilman Marshall?
Yes.
And Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Perfect. Item B is approved. We're on a roll on the east side. Are we staying on the east side?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We're on the east side. Jesse and Landon's neighborhood.
Right.
Here we go.
Zion's Landing. We're calling this Zion's Landing 2.0. You guys might remember this being before the council a few months ago. At that time, the proposal was to change the zoning to R16, so the applicants could conceivably actually propose to subdivide the property into 8 lots for single-family homes. That proposal was denied, hence the applicants coming back at this point in time for this site. I'll say just over 2 acres, north side of 4th North. You can see the Reese Elementary School, so directly south, Reese Elementary School, in case that helps. The proposal tonight is to change the zoning to R19. And with that, which incidentally is consistent with the general plan, image of the site, rather than to be able to do this is not what the applicants are proposing at this time. That's what they had proposed previously. Again, 8 lots. This is the proposal now. 6 lots. 4 of those would be available for the construction of single-family homes, and only single-family homes. 2 of them would allow for the construction of a twin home. That's a building with 2 different conveyable halves to it, 2 dwelling units under 1 roof here. Another part of the zoning proposal is to use the complete neighborhoods overlay. I say this hopefully in an endearing way. It's a pretty humble start to using the complete neighborhoods overlay. It's the first one. And yet I think it's a very good fit for that particular tool, which is really intended to provide an option and, frankly, a little bit of an incentive, at least, for developers in areas that are zoned primarily for single-family homes to, in a limited, careful way, include some housing that's not single-family detached. Twin home, for example, in this case, obviously. Perhaps even maybe a 3-unit building with a catch, which is that the inclusion of any non-single-family homes meets certain design criteria so they at least mimic the look of a single-family home, with the idea that without perhaps paying really close attention, somebody driving down the street would have the feeling that they're in any single-family neighborhood in this part of the community. I think what the applicants have proposed certainly can accomplish that. And at the same time, and I appreciated one of the neighbors coming to the public hearing with the Planning Commission raising a concern about what the twin home might look like. And I likewise appreciate the position that the applicants are in right now, which is that they haven't fully designed the home that they would eventually construct on that lot. So almost, as I see it, is kind of like a safety net. I'd suggest that you maybe consider having the Planning Commission review the architecture of the twin home in this case before we issue a building permit for it, to try to provide assurance that indeed it meets the intent of looking enough like a single-family home, probably to some degree by way of how the garage is oriented, maybe by way of using other means, maybe matching materials and roof pitch and that sort of thing with other homes in the development, to where it fits. It's the best way I can put it, is so that it fits. It doesn't detract from everything else. So in fact, that's one of the proposed conditions that came out of the discussion that we had with the Planning Commission. In this case, you have a few items to consider tonight. Again, a zone change to the R1-9 zone with the complete neighborhoods overlay. And then also in this case, we have a preliminary plat application, which would create what is proposed right here. And with all of those different items, both the Development Review Committee and the Planning Commission have recommended that they be approved. A public hearing is requisite for the zone change part of it. There's not a public hearing required for the preliminary plat part. I think you could handle those probably in a variety of different ways tonight. But they all come together for the one purpose of letting that plat happen.
Questions for Dave before hearing from the applicant?
So there's one twin home structure.
Two.
But there's two. There's one in each. Like
one structure,
two houses.
two units, two homes. Okay. Yeah, under one roof.
All right. Gotcha.
But it's not going to look like a twin
home. So explain to me again what you just described with the Planning Commission, and as far as approval.
Yeah.
Will that be part of a Planning Commission meeting, or they'll just meet in a work session on that? Will that be a public meeting that the neighbor that has concerns will be able to attend and be a part of or listen to? What does that look like? Because I don't recall that we've done that before.
We haven't done that before. Actually, not for a long, long time. Once upon a time, way back, that kind of thing was somewhat common. It could be whatever you think it should be, or you could do away with the idea. This is how we phrased it there, condition number 4. This is tied to the preliminary plat. Before a building permit is issued, the building designs and elevations are presented to and reviewed by the Planning Commission. Now, I would say, probably just for like ease of making that happen, be a work session. We certainly could reach out to neighbors and make sure they're aware and invited to come. If you'd prefer that we make it an agenda item, we could do that. Short of maybe Vaughn having a concern with us going down any of those paths, it's out of the norm. Yeah. And I don't think we want to make this common practice. No. But let me say this as well, that this is unique. Rather than to even be having this conversation as we are talking with other builders, to try to get them to at least think about doing this, the expectation is that they give us the elevations up front so that the Planning Commission has them when they're reviewing the idea. You have them. Any neighbors can see it up front, and this kind of a step is simply not necessary. So that will be the expectation that staff will have, at least, as we bring these forward in the future. And this project's been through a little bit, so trying to get it to the finish line maybe in an easy way.
Thank you.
Dave, I don't have a concern, but more of kind of a follow-up from our last conversation. I remember talking about this a couple months ago, I guess it's been, and I know there was a little bit of concern with the development that was presented with snow removal. Not as much of a concern, I believe, as there was with parking. I know there'll be fewer people now living in the, fewer places built on that property. But I'm just kind of curious, thoughts on that or anything that may have changed in that conversation and those concerns at that time.
I'll just speak for myself, and really can't speak for the concerns. I don't think those are concerns for staff. As proposed, there is a lot of the 2-acre site that's dedicated to the public right-of-ways. Both the street that connects into 4th North and what becomes the cul-de-sac, and the potential connection if the property to the east ever develops. Just as much room within those right-of-ways as there is on any street where any homes are built in Spanish Fork. So just as much room for parking, snow storage, as you need to plow it and put it someplace, and those kinds of things. So not to diminish, the concern that some might have, but if either of those two things are a problem here, then they're a problem everywhere.
Great. Thanks.
None of those lots would have driveways on 4th North, right? They would all be inside the development.
Correct.
Anything else for Dave? Okay.
No.
Is the applicant here that would like to speak to us before going into public hearing?
How's it going? Nate Heaps, represent the applicant. Appreciate you guys taking another look at this. We took a lot of what was said in our previous meetings into consideration and worked heavily with staff and the Planning Commission to try and nail down something that would work for everybody. So I don't know if there's any questions at this time, or if we maybe wait till after the public hearing if there's any questions that come up.
Questions for Nate now?
No.
Okay, hold tight. I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing.
So moved.
Motion made by Councilman Took, seconded by Councilman Marshall. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
We're in public hearing for item C. Is there anybody from the public that would like to speak to this ordinance? Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to go out of public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck, seconded by Councilman Euler. All in favor say yes.
Yes.
Discussion back up here. Any questions for staff or the applicant on this zone change? Pretty straightforward, I guess, from what Dave presented.
It's pretty straightforward. I guess from my perspective, when we get to the preliminary plat, that last condition, get a little bit uncomfortable with, like, when does that end? Do we tell all 4 of the homes how they should look?
We have building standards for a reason.
Yeah. It's new. I get it. We don't want to mess this up. We want to make sure that we can use this other places. So it's, maybe this is the first one. If you guys are comfortable with it, fine. It's not a lot of teeth, though, right? And I don't want to see a back and forth between the applicant and the Planning Commission about, no, I like this, no, I don't like this, no, I like this. But
yeah.
So it's a tough one for me, but that's on the...
It's on the next one, right?
Plat.
Yeah.
So for the zone change...
I think it's appropriate, though, to talk about it right now. I think in terms of acting on it, we would expect you to do them right at the same time. So you can talk about it now. Okay. It's totally appropriate.
I think it's a valid concern that you're talking about with when you attach dwellings to each other. It just seems some of the other places that are multiple dwellings. I'm thinking about like the 55 and older community. They've oriented the garages in a way that it's hard to tell if that's a single family home or a twin home, where the regular, if I'm thinking what Dave was saying, the regular standard twin home was just 2 garages and an entrance next to the garages, and you knew that was 2 separate homes. And so I think the neighborhood, as we look at for this in future developments, have a better feel to it if you rear loaded some of those or side loaded some of the garages, and then one was front loaded or something, you know.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you. I think that is legit. I think you can screw this up or mess this up.
I think, Shane, one thing that you said, I think it is, we don't want to set up something like this in perpetuity, that we're going to have all these different times where it comes up. But I think Dave hit on that they've already come up with a solution to make sure it doesn't happen again, is that before we do these overlays, that we're going to have them provide that.
We'd have that conversation prior.
So I think that this is going to be a one-off just for this one.
You've got 5 different people on the Planning Commission. They each could have a different opinion on how they want it to look.
100%.
So
that's my concern, is these guys are just back and forth for a month about one twin home.
And like Jesse said, we've got architecture standards already in place that as long as they're meeting those, our opinions, the Planning Commission's opinions, shouldn't matter if they're meeting the standards that have been put in place by the Planning Commission and by the council.
I can see it, the applicant coming one time and saying, this is what we came up with your development standards. What do you think? Give us feedback, and then move forward.
Yep.
Move forward.
You're all cool with that?
I thought you.
Real quick. So I'm the applicant.
Oh, yeah.
So we're happy to be the guinea pig. Whatever you guys want us to do, we want to. The neighborhood's going to be uniform. The twin home is going to have the exact same elevation styles as the single family homes there. Okay. That's the plan. But whatever you guys want us to do, we'd like to jump through the hoops and get these houses built.
Tara needs your name over here. She just needs your name.
Your name.
Taione. Taione.
And last name.
Milatoni. Militoni. Lots of vowels.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. I thought you loved one-offs. You always say how much you love.
I'm the
one-off
non-one-off guy. Until it suits me, then I'm fully supportive of it. For the record.
Truest statement that Shane has ever said in a council meeting.
Mr. Mayor,
yes.
We don't have this in the presentation, and I appreciate Mr. Heap providing it. It's kind of a late ad for us, but they did provide it's an updated elevation for the twin home.
You got it.
It's on page 5 of the staff report.
Oh, we don't have it.
I think to the comment the gentleman just made,
it's in the new business.
it does sync well with the building elevations that they gave us for the single family homes. They would have to change the design so it doesn't so clearly appear to be a twin home with the 2 garages right out front, which is kind of the classic, design aspect. It's a dead giveaway that it's a 2-unit.
Page what, Dave, of that? You say it's in our notes?
Yeah, it's in the preliminary plat staff report
It's
on
right
page
here.
5.
But then again, it wouldn't look like that at all.
It'd be the same elevations, but just different structural makeup.
Right.
So we're thinking roof pitch, exterior materials,
Yeah.
different things like that would be consistent, which I think is absolutely the idea that we're after with the complete neighborhood overlay.
Okay.
Which is something also that the Planning Commission did not have when we presented this to them. That's a recent add to what we've been given.
Great. Does Jack have that on his presentation that he could pull up?
Jack wanted to go to the agenda. He could pull that up.
Just so everyone and Travis can show the world.
I think it's the last image. There, Jack. We'll see first. It's not that one.
It's in the zone change.
I apologize, Jack.
So it's in public hearings C, and it's the second from the top.
We have to keep Jack on his toes.
Yep.
So in this one, first we'll see the elevations that have been provided for the single-family homes. Those 2 there, and then there's the twin home.
It's not a bad-looking twin home.
Mm-mm.
So the making it look like a single-family home, that's all under construction standards already, so that wouldn't be a part of what the conversation would even need to be, right?
That's for you to decide. But yeah, we do have. There are standards in the complete neighborhoods overlay that, for example, say you can't have garage doors. You can't have more than one set of garage doors that are visible from a street.
That's in our standard.
Yeah, so it'd have to be side load, maybe rear load. I think a lot of times you'll see these on corner lots. Where it's a little bit easier to disguise what's there.
He's back.
He's back.
Sorry.
All right.
This is a rendering for an old plan we had, and so the plan is to build it to what Dave's expecting and what the building department needs. But those garages will be side loaded. So if you can imagine in your mind, that garage is actually going to be at the back of the house. The driveways will be on the right and left hand side of that lot. You'll still have that front entrance, but you won't see the garages. So you'll have a nice front entrance. The driveways will be on the left and right hand side of each lot. You'll go back and they'll pull into their garage in the back of the house. Just a quick, sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that.
We could just add a finding that says something to the effect of that the elevations are consistent throughout the development. That would
sounds like a great motion for you.
That would kind of solve it.
On the plat or the zone change?
Maybe on the zone change, I believe.
Yeah, the zone change, I think, applies to the complete neighborhood. That's right. Yep. But I'd change that last condition to what
the number 4 that you said?
On the preliminary plat.
Yeah. No, on the...
He said on the zone change.
Do I have it backwards?
Yes. You're right. For once.
It's on the preliminary plat. Thanks.
Oh, okay. It is on the... Yep, it's on the plat. So let's get through C in public hearing first, and then you can do new business right after if there's no needed discussion there. I'd entertain a motion if somebody's ready.
I'm going to do it on the preliminary plat.
All right, I'll do it on this one. I move to approve the proposed ordinance for Zion Landing 2.0 zone change based on the following findings. 1, that the proposal conforms to the city's general plan designation of medium density residential. 2, that the R19 zoning district is consistent with the area. And 3, that the proposal conforms to the intent of the complete neighborhood overlay.
Second. Motion made by Councilman Marshall, seconded by Councilman Euler. A roll call vote here. Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Cardon.
Yes.
Councilman Took.
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Item C is approved. Takes us to 9A of the same development. Any questions or discussion that needs to happen here before a motion? I would entertain a motion.
I move to approve the proposed Zion's Landing subdivision 2.0 preliminary plat based on the following findings and subject to the following conditions. Findings that the proposal conforms to the city's general plan designation and medium density residential, that the proposal conforms with the intent of a complete neighborhood overlay district. Conditions that the applicant meets the city's development and construction standards, zoning requirements, and other applicable city ordinances. 2, that the applicant addresses any staff review comments. 3, that the city council approves the associated zone change. And then 4, that the entire project has similar elevations throughout the project.
Motion made by Councilman Cardon.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Took. A roll call vote here. Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Cardon.
Yes.
And Councilman Took.
Yes.
Okay. 9A is approved as well.
You almost seconded it.
Almost denied.
Thank you, applicant. Appreciate you. Okay, item B, Escalante Townhomes preliminary plat reapproval. What area of the city are we in now, David? Are we on the east side still?
I would say still on the east side, gradually moving west. In this case, the subject property is right up against U.S. Highway 6 on the south side of 400 North. We've talked about this site a number of times over the years. The last time it was before the council, it was for preliminary plat approval in October of 2022. Again, try to make the story as succinct as I can. That approval that was granted in 2022 expired in 2024, and the current applicant, I believe, is ready to move forward and to record a subdivision plat, which sets things up to actually be able to build the infrastructure and then build the homes and do everything that you would expect eventually to happen with a project like this. It's just over a 2-acre site. 20 townhomes were approved. in 2022, what's before the council tonight, is exactly what was approved in 2022 as the preliminary plat, simply looking for the council to reapprove it so that the applicant conceivably could be able to record a plat within the next few days. They've taken significant steps towards having that ready to happen. They've paid some fees. They've provided most of the required documents. They're in the process of getting the others put together. This having been kind of a legacy project that goes back a really long time, for me, it's exciting to think about it actually happening. It's just me. But in my view, there really is no reason to withhold the reapproval of the preliminary plat so the applicant can move forward. And that is staff's recommendation.
Questions for Dave on this reapproval?
Dave, just one quick question, just because I wasn't around, and why was it? What was the delay? Or it was approved 2022, you said, and then what? You may have mentioned this. I'm sorry if you're making you repeat, but why are we doing it again?
We're doing it again simply because the applicant didn't move forward and meet the requirements that have to be met to keep that approval valid. From when a preliminary plat gets approved, an applicant has 2 years to record a plat in order to keep that approval intact, and that didn't happen. Now, I don't think that's maybe necessarily your question, like why there were delays and what happened to cause them to not have a plat recorded. I could guess, but I don't know. So I don't know if anybody representing the applicant's here tonight. There we go. So maybe he could speak to just the why there, but
that's great.
Anything for Dave?
I'm good to reapprove
Thank you,
it.
Dave. If the applicant would like to speak, you're more than welcome. Okay. Yeah, I remember this. You remember this coming here? I think. Were you here yet?
I was
Were you
on the planning
commission? Okay. Yeah, tough little area, and it looks like you got something back going now. So good for everybody.
Well, I'll make a motion.
People in that neighborhood are going to have to turn right and go around the roundabout to go
That's
west,
what I was just
but
looking at too.
Yeah, it's going to be hard to go west on that.
Yeah, well, it's not right in, right out, but they're not going to want to turn left there, right?
Going to be basically right in, right out.
Time of day.
It'll be busy. 4th North, it's a busy street.
Well, there's kind of a roundabout in the subdivision. They can practice once, and then they can get out on 4th North and do it
hit
again.
that roundabout and then hit the other one.
Down there.
I'm going to go ahead and make a move to reapprove the Escalante Townhomes preliminary plat based on the following finding and subject to the following conditions. The finding is that the development meets the requirements for master plan developments in the R3 zone, and conditions are that the applicant meet the criteria provided in the city's construction and development standards, as well as the applicant meet the conditions imposed with the October 18th, 2022 preliminary plat approval and the conditions imposed with any final plat approvals.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Cardin. A roll call vote here. Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
And Councilman Took.
Yes.
And Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
That's approved, with noted that Councilwoman Beck was frustrated with the roundabout discussion. Just so the minutes reflect. You were fed
Was
up.
it the roundabout discussion, or was it just the banter?
Well, the roundabout jokes she didn't like. She likes roundabouts, just not the jokes. Okay. Takes us to item C, council assignments. I hope none of you speak against these assignments.
I do.
Oh, you do? You're gonna have an issue?
Well,
roundabout committee?
Yeah, it's a roundabout committee that you're on.
The no joke
this
committee.
has me on the ULCT committee, and Jesse's going to take that, and then it has Jesse on the library, and I was going to take that.
So we need to switch Councilman Cardin. Mine shows Councilman Cardin ULCT.
And library. And then she has ULCT as well.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
But she doesn't have library.
No.
Okay, so we need to add library Seth, remind me, do we get U and 2?
On LPC?
Yeah.
So while I'm serving as an executive on the executive board for the League of Cities and Towns, we get 4.
Yeah.
So I get a vote because of that position, so then we get 3 others. So we get extra weight. Yeah.
Viewing public, LPC, legislative.
Yeah, the Legislative Policy
Committee.
It's a group that takes positions on legislation. As we were talking earlier, some 220 bills. Cities band together with an organization called the League of Cities and Towns. That group has a policy committee that helps them to form positions. Cities all get 3 representatives. Because of the position I'm currently serving in, we get 4.
They have a riveting hour and 45-minute call today you can watch if you want.
Yeah.
I move that
When I say riveting,
and
there's
Landon
lots of fun
So for this year,
and I move that I'm off.
for this year, before we get too far, because of where we are in the session, we and Vaughn and Dave were both going. I think we put Vaughn on as our 4th vote.
Okay.
This year, so it wouldn't be effective until. If you wanted to have another person on there from the council, they wouldn't fill that role until after the session.
Okay.
Does that make sense? This year they asked us to lock it in so there isn't constant.
I'm already on there.
You're on there.
Yeah.
As it relates to the league,
Yes.
Jesse's already there.
Yeah.
Okay. Nothing we need to change on here besides adding library board to council member Beck's
And then do we
portfolio.
leave the LPC part on mine, Seth? That assignment or no?
As far as the league is concerned, is that what you're asking?
Yeah.
Yes, we
Okay.
took you off from their perspective.
Okay, so it should be off on this as well. Okay.
But we don't need to add anybody else because we got Vaughn kind of filling that role.
If you want to fill that 4th spot with somebody other than Vaughn for next year, you can tell me now. We'll have them on starting in March after the session.
We can do some horse trading here. Anybody want?
And not that you have to. I mean, if you want to keep that with Vaughn, if you want to keep that with Vaughn, that's fine. Or if somebody else wants to jump in,
Vaughn enjoys the riveting conversations too.
If anybody has a desire, you can let us know. I think in the future, if we're going like we're going now, I think we keep it like we're going now. But we will note that correction to take the library away from Jesse. He's messed it up enough. We're going to take it to Stacy's area.
Wasn't even on it.
Yeah, messed it up. But Stacy will be great there. Let me just read these out really quick, so you the public know maybe who to call. This is going to be updated on the website for the city too, right, Jack? If you click on your city council, you'll see the areas that they are over. What that means is they're going to those meetings once a month at least. Some of them more than once a month to talk about those issues. So the mayor's responsibilities, Fairgrounds Committee, Fire Retirement Board, Local Building Authority, Personnel Committee, South Utah Valley Power Systems, Utah Municipal Power Agency, the Rodeo Committee, and the Council of Governments, which is MAG.
It's not MAG. I think you need MAG and COG.
Both?
I think so.
That doesn't encompass it?
I don't think so. Those are 2
But you
separate
usually
boards.
go to one of them for me.
You want to, you could delegate one to me.
Yeah.
He only has like 3 anyway.
You could give me MAG, but I think they're
Already
2
go?
separate boards. I
Yeah.
go 80% of the time because
Work.
no, I support him and his
Okay.
25 things he's got going. So
Yeah, see how busy. Yeah, I wouldn't mind that. Yeah, I wouldn't mind
for
that.
me.
So I'm going to stay with those. We'll go Councilwoman Beck, Mayor Pro Tem, Fiesta Days Executive Committee, Personnel Committee, Local Building Authority, Vice Chair, ULC. We're not doing ULCT for you. The Airport Board and the Library Board. Councilman Marshall is over the Veterans Council, the South Utah Valley Solid Waste District, Wastewater Treatment Plant Advisory Committee, Personnel Committee, and we'll add Mountainland Association of Governments to that, Shane, if you're all right.
That works.
Councilmember Euler, South Utah Valley Municipal Water Association, otherwise known as SUMWA. Looks really good on a vest if they ever get you a vest or something.
Explain it.
Yeah, you have to tell them what it means. Historical Preservation Committee, Commission. Appreciate your good work on that, by the way. Cool thing to start back up in our city.
Can we move that he has to be on that for his life?
It could be a lifetime appointment.
It's a lifetime assignment.
I think so.
You may not get reelected, but you're never getting rid of that board. The Recreation, Arts, Parks Program Committee, or the RAP the RAP Committee that takes in applications for our RAP program. Senior Advisory Board, Risk Management Committee, Mount Nebo Water Agency, and the South Utah Valley Animal Services Special Service District. Spay and neuter your cats.
Please.
So I did not, on this list, I didn't see any change for Kevin. Is that correct?
No changes for Kevin. He's keeping them. Councilman Marshall tried to make the lifetime appointment.
I think there's 2 lifetime appointments.
Yeah, probably the senior too.
And the seniors.
Yeah, probably.
Yep.
And the animal shelter, why not?
Hey, yeah, by the time I'm done, I might be eligible for senior.
Yeah, exactly.
Just go right into it.
Just go.
Councilman Cardin is on the airport board. Also represents us at the Rotary Club, the Arts Council, the Youth City Council, the Utah League of Cities and Towns, and not the library. So, Utah League of Cities and Towns. Okay, Council Member Landon Took, the Miss Spanish Fork pageant, doing a great job there. The Chamber of Commerce, doing a great job there as well. Our Parks and Recreation Committee, and the Little Miss Spanish Fork pageant. Good?
I think it should be noted that Shane, Stacy, and I we got a good job at anything we're doing. You're doing this.
Yeah.
Kevin
Did I
and
not
Glenn,
make that?
Picked up on that.
Kevin and Landon are doing a good
Oh, really?
job.
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Hey, Fiesta Days is fantastic, Stacy.
I made it tonight. That's all I did.
Yeah.
Okay? I showed back up.
The wastewater treatment plant is almost ready to go. Credit that to Councilman Marshall.
Yeah, for sure. I've been this many times.
Yeah, Councilman Cardin. You City Council just hit a home run, and everybody's doing great. Everybody's doing great.
So to make sure that we've got our notes right, I'm on this table that we've got Stacy, Take Off League, Ad Library, Shane, Ad Mag, Jesse, Ad Library.
Take Off Library.
I have no library. I meant no library.
Yeah.
Take Off Library.
Take Off
I
Library.
did not say that, but I meant it. Did I get everything? Am I missing?
I think that's
any
the changes we got.
Yep, that's it.
That's correct. Does that need to be a motion for those appointments? I just make those appointments by acclamation by saying it.
I would say a motion would be great.
Okay.
I move to accept the mayor's committee assignments.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Cardin, seconded by, you can have an option, seconded by Councilwoman Beck. It's a roll call vote. Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Again, thank you, Council, for your good work in those areas. And again, public, if there's something that concerns you about the city, certainly reach out to that council member. They are to those meetings every couple of weeks and can keep you updated as necessary. Okay, the next appointments that I want to make, and it looks like we got Paul to nearly stay all night with us, but he's done that before. So I'm excited to introduce a couple of new commissioners to our Planning Commission. We have a couple of them leaving the Planning Commission. Joseph Ernest has Ernest?
Correct.
Okay. Has left our city. Therefore, he has left our commission. He's never welcome again in the city. He's a good guy. Just moved next door to Mapleton, right?
And yet still kind of dead to us, right? You moved to Mapleton.
Yes. Yes. We'll be dead forever.
Thanks for serving, Joseph.
I had
Don't let the door hit
I had a plaque for you.
Just take that as
won't get it.
future. Don't just move out. That's what you get. That's what you get.
You didn't know that was part of the gig. We've got Paul Dayton that will replace Joseph Ernest, and John Mendenhall, my dad, will go off the commission in his last meeting will be in March, and David Woodhouse will take the place of John Mendenhall in the April meeting. But we've got Mr. Paul Dayton here tonight. Paul, if you'd come up here. Sorry I didn't prep you for this a little bit more, but I was able to interview Paul and some others about serving on the Planning Commission, and it just seemed like a great fit for Spanish Fork and to work with the public. I know you've been through Spanish Fork University 101, so you know everything about the city now.
I was on Jack's inaugural run, and he did a great job.
The first one by Jack. All right.
I don't remember the fight song, but teach that to the next class right there.
Well, tell the public a little bit about yourself. We'll see you up here in the next Planning Commission meeting, Paul, and get to know you throughout the years. But
yeah, well, I've lived here since 2008. Absolutely love the experience. I believe in being involved in your community. Community building is really important. We're really lucky, I think, with the type of community we have here, and it's benefited me and my family quite a bit, so I appreciate that. I have 2 kids. They're both Maple Mountain High. My daughter is 20, so she's now at UVU, and my son's 16, so he's just barely going through the roads of Spanish Fork, and I think he might be a better driver than me. So anyway, I really...
Roundabouts?
He hates roundabouts, but I tell him I love him because you just keep rolling, so I know it's an ongoing thing there. Anyway, I just appreciate the opportunity to serve, and I come in here humbled. I've followed along with a lot of the things going on in the city. I want to learn, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity, and apparently Dave's going to become my best friend with getting me up to speed. So.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you.
Any questions for Paul?
I just want to say I've gotten to know Paul the last couple of years a little bit. Perfect choice for this appointment as one of our new commissioners on the Planning Commission. He loves Spanish Fork, super passionate, and just a very bright mind. So I'm excited to have him in this.
I hope you don't hold it against me that I went to Payson High School, though. So.
Whoa, everything was going so good.
Well, now. We didn't did that come up in the interview?
We didn't even know that. Oh, my.
Train off the tracks. One thing I think is worth highlighting in a setting like this, Paul has run on every street in the city.
That is true. That was a COVID project for me.
COVID project 2020. He literally ran on every street in our town. So I think if we put a GoPro on his head, we could have updated Google Street View with the running that he did during 20.
I think there are a couple new streets, though, that I need to true up
you probably need to. Yeah.
I think that's the first time I remember ever you coming in and talking to us. And it's like, wow, that's so impressive.
Yeah. It was fun. It's a beautiful place.
Thank you for accepting this assignment from the mayor.
Yep. Thank you.
Appreciate you, Paul. Thank you. We have Vaughn can attest. I have a few things that I can forgive from this dais, and graduating from Payson's one of them, right? So let's forgive.
You can forgive.
Yep. Pardon.
Is it really graduating if you're from Payson?
Deep. Indeed. Paul, thank you. You'll do great on our Planning Commission. Mr. Woodhouse, we'll have Dave here at a later time. But
Dave is a Spanish Fork High School graduate. I'd like to just
Councilwoman Beck, you know a little bit about Dave. Anything you want to say that he can't correct you on here from the?
Not publicly. No.
Okay. All right. Okay. Fair enough. But Dave comes from general contractor background, right? And has some history there. Doesn't live up on the east side where Paul lives, but lives on the west side of town.
Yeah, which we thought would be an asset over these next couple of years where so much growth is going to be proposed and annexation possibilities on that west side out to the Benjamin exit. So we thought someone that lives down in that area would be helpful. So
good.
Great choices.
Good picks. Okay. Well, if there's nothing else that somebody has to say about these two gentlemen that are willing to serve their city for the next, what are they, Dave? Are they 4-year stints? Are they 3-year stints? Are they staggered?
Set up, and we will bring something back sometime in the next couple of months to kind of true up terms. So with Joseph kind of leaving midterm, that gets a little weird. But the intent is that the appointment's for 3 years, and that commissioners have the opportunity potentially to serve 2 3-year terms.
Perfect. Okay. Don't plan anything for the next 6 years.
Don't plan to move for 6 years.
Yep. Okay. I would entertain a motion for these 2 appointments.
I move to appoint Paul Dayton and David Woodhouse to the Planning Commission.
Motion made by Councilman Took. Seconded by Councilwoman Beck. A roll call vote here. Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
Councilman Took.
Yes.
And Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Perfect. Those people will join us soon. We appreciate it. Takes us to cable rate increases. This sounds like a Tyler Jacobson discussion. Item E of our agenda tonight.
Yeah, we miss Brian Perry. Brian is the one who usually gives this presentation, and shout out to you, Brian, if you're watching. Appreciate all the work you do, especially now that I'm having to do this. So we are grateful to have Brady Taylor, our customer service manager from SFCN, with us tonight. So he sat here all night. I think we ought to ask him some
awesome.
Pretty penetrating questions. But
that's exactly why he sat here all night, so we could get the hard questions.
Yeah. So if you remember last year when Brian Perry was here, I think it was actually a February City Council meeting, he talked about cutting the cord and getting rid of coax and going all over the top, which means that we now stream video content and media content rather than having a coax cable to each of the homes. So he talked about cutting the cords in October of last year, and that happened. And so we've made the transition over to what's now called SFCN TV, which is a streaming service that's available to our residents. With that, one of the things that Brian was really conscious about is what does this do to our existing customers. Also, he was very conscious about the cost of the services, and as all staff is, and as you are as council members. And so in his presentation last year, he talked about some different options for the public, and we're happy to introduce a new tier that the city will offer. It's called SFCN OTT, and these are some of the channels. Actually, these are all of the channels that you would get if you went with that package. Probably the most popular channel there is the Hallmark channel. So if you have anybody that is interested in Hallmark, especially around the holiday season, there's a great lineup there. This new tier will be $19.99 a month. We'll talk about the price for the other tiers here in just a minute.
So is that SFCN not?
You can read it like that. It's kind of like PetSmart. Is it PetSmart or is it PetSmart? You know what I mean? It's just kind of a play on words. I'm not.
Hey, Tyler, it's not listed on there, but this would also include your local channels. And does it also include Channel 17 with this package?
It does not include local channels, so it doesn't have like your NBC, ABC, CBS, SF17. Seth, do you know the answer?
It can be on there. That's a free channel in terms of putting that on there. Is that correct, Brady? We would expect 17 to be on there.
Okay. And on that note, Councilman Euler, that's another option for our residents that maybe some of them don't know about, and that is if anyone wants SF17, which is our local channel that broadcasts a lot of the local events, sporting events, other activities that are going on in the community, you can get that for free on YouTube. If you just go to YouTube, type in SF17, it'll pull up that channel that you can actually stream. You can stream the live games when they're on, or you can also stream some of the historical content. Actually, I'd say probably all of the historical content that's been put out there. So that's another option for residents that's at no charge that's available.
I had a resident actually text me right when council started and said, I want to watch council. How can I?
Oh, yeah. We're live on there now. There's people watching. That's right.
Millions.
The millions, yes.
Kevin, back to your question. As we look at the rates in just a minute, the reason, the basic plan has gone to what it is because of those local channels. If you look back maybe even 10 years ago, perhaps, maybe it's a little bit more than 10, but certainly 15 years ago, all of those channels, we rebroadcast. It was called retransmission consent. We would broadcast those for free. You can get them on the antenna. We'll capture them from the antenna and just put them out here as a convenience factor. The FCC changed the rules and allowed for those channels to charge, and since they have in large amounts. And so as you see the basic and subsequently the other tiers, they're going up in large part because of what we call the off airs. Brady, how'd I do? Did I get that okay?
Could I paraphrase from maybe my understanding? So the $19.99 is the most budget-friendly option. They do not include the local channels, but you can get your local channels off an antenna for free.
Correct.
So residents can have these channels for $19.99. They would need to get an antenna, and they could watch the local channels for free.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and I tried to list the channels that are available on most antennas there. You can see, like you mentioned, Councilwoman Beck, there's some of the ABCs, NBC, Fox, those stations there. And actually, while Travis is in here, shout out to Travis for SF17. Thanks for the work you're doing, Travis. All right, now we get to the not so fun part, which is the increase in cost for cable. Actually, I'm not going to use the term cable. SFCN TV, cable's gone. Now the streaming service is here. So when we raise prices, it's because, as Seth mentioned just a moment ago, the channel providers actually raise the prices for the city. So we're having to pay an increased amount to be able to broadcast these channels. And last year, Brian mentioned that on the basic tier, Spanish Fork City makes about $7.50 per customer. That amount hasn't changed from what he was saying since ever. Like, that's pretty much what we've made year over year for the longest time. So this price markup is not increasing the net income of the city. It actually is just revenue. I mean, it's income neutral. There's not an increase there. So here's our rates. You can see there's a column that says 2024. You can see the price for basic was about $55 in 2024. That's going up to about $59. You can see the same thing happens with expanded basic as far as there is an increase. Same thing with super digital. You may have the question, why are some of the higher tiers not increasing as much? It seems like you would expect if one of the lower tiers went up $4.22 at a minimum, those higher tiers would go up that amount. The reason for that is there are some channels that have been acquired over time by larger providers or larger broadcasters. So, for example, Viacom bought like Nickelodeon, Nick Jr., those stations, and the price actually came down because they were able to offer, from what I understand, somewhat of a bundled type package. And so as a result, on these higher tiers, some of the channels, some of the prices went down for some channels, and then some of the prices went up. That's why you're seeing a little bit of an offset there with the higher tiers. Any questions on these rates?
Hey, Tyler, I've got one quick one.
Yeah.
By chance, do we know what one is most popular, what our residents are using the most? Like, is there one that's more commonly?
Seth, Brady, do you guys know?
Are you talking tier or
package? Yeah.
So yeah, Brady said it's basic and expanded basic are our two most popular. So the two tiers that were our lowest tiers until this year, which we're now offering the SFCN. One thing that's interesting is, anybody want to guess how many customers we had prior, or let's say January of 24 versus January 25? So January 24, we had about 2,200 customers. January 25, we have about 1,500 customers. So that gives you, I guess, kind of an idea of what we're looking at there. Now, with that, we have to keep in mind SFCN's future is vibrant. I mean, the internet is really what people want now, fiber to the home, and that's where the focus is, and that's why we're streaming channels now instead of bringing them to people over coax.
What you're saying, the difference there is some other people are probably using our internet service and maybe using a different streaming service.
Yes, yep. When we talk about these over-the-top streaming services, if you have Disney Plus, Netflix, Amazon Prime, those are over-the-top channel providers.
So they could still be using our internet service to stream those.
Yeah, and we have, I think, 80 to 85% of our residents have SFCN internet. So
Yeah, about 12,500 subscribers to our internet system. So, stark contrast. Like Tyler hit the nail on the head that the not cable anymore. The streaming television service is not the future of SFCN. It's dying a slow death. Telephone service is not the future of the SFCN system. It's also dying a slow death. But the broadband service that we provide, that's what everybody's consuming, wanting, and that's probably the reason we got into the system 25 years ago, right? Back in the early days, people in Spanish Fork were trying to get on the internet and couldn't, or trying to make a phone call and couldn't, and because the systems here didn't allow for it. So that was the reason we got into it, and the reason for the system going forward.
And if this is approved tonight, a little further downstream, we'd have April 1st be the date that these new rates become effective. Residents would see it on their bills on May 1st. So any questions there?
Questions for Tyler or Brady?
Other than the meeting tonight, Tyler, are customers given any kind of a notice in the mail, newsletter? How are they notified?
Excellent question. So we're required to give 30 days notice before these rates come into effect. That's why we're sharing these tonight in this council meeting, so that we can give that at least 30 days notice. There'll be a postcard that each of our subscribers get that'll inform them of these rate changes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Tyler, if we weren't to approve these, where would the money come from, or what would we do?
I guess it would come from the reserves of SFCN.
It would eat into just the other money that we have as a city, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
What? Explain that.
So it'd come from the general fund or from other places, right? We'd still have to pay the money to the
yeah,
senators.
we would take it from SFCN revenue. Otherwise,
my point in asking the question is that if we don't approve this, we are just costing the taxpayers of Spanish Fork money.
Yeah, in this one, I would probably use the word ratepayer, because we would take it out of the enterprise fund of the broadband system.
Right.
So it would eat away at the revenues that it receives from the other services. Yeah.
Well, I think it's important tonight to make it a point, and to people asking the questions when they see a relatively small increase in these rates, that number one, it's just being passed along. We're not making anything on it. But number two, there's that other option now that we didn't have before, that you can get for $20 a month.
Yeah.
And you just, if you want to watch the local channels, you do it with an antenna. So that's a pretty good option coming up if these increases are starting to hurt people.
What's that one that Chad likes? True Grit?
Grit. I don't know if it's on there or not.
Yeah, I don't see Grit's on one of our. Actually, I think it's on this antenna one too. I can't see it.
You should be able to get on antenna.
Go home and
you might
test
get a
it.
call from Councilman Oregon. Okay. Any other questions for Tyler or Brady? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the cable rate increases.
Motion made by Councilwoman Beck.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Marshall. A roll call vote here. Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
And Councilman Took.
Yes.
Me first.
E's approved. Takes us to F, resolution approving mutual aid agreement with Salem Fiber. Mr. Corey Pierce. Oh, you're early for fiber? This is Mr. Vaughn Piquel. You're up next with the... Get away with a lot of stuff if you just walk confidently.
Vaughn was going to let you get up and speak.
My entire life. This agreement is really an agreement to formalize an existing relationship that Spanish Fork SFCN has with Salem Fiber. They help each other out a lot. It's to provide technical assistance or equipment use or even personnel when needed.
on a temporary basis. And it's usually in cases where there's a disaster of some kind, or there's some other prolonged or some other need that can't be covered adequately. Really no costs. Each side's going to bear its own costs. Only if we use consumable materials or damage equipment, then those parties will cover those costs. And then the term is pretty much indefinite, but with a short notice, 30-day notice, either party can get out. So there's any questions about that? It's pretty simple.
Questions for Vaughn on this? No. Pretty straightforward. If there's no questions, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the resolution approving mutual aid agreement with Salem Fiber.
Motion made by Councilman Marshall.
Second.
Second by Councilman Euler. Roll call vote here. Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
Councilman Took.
Yes.
And Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
F is approved. Now it's Corey Pierce with item G, approving the interlocal agreement, Nebo Belt Loop Corridor Study.
Thank you. I wasn't thinking alphabetical or even in order, I guess. What you have before you tonight is a resolution to approve this interlocal agreement between Salem City, Payson City, Spanish Fork, Woodland Hills, Elk Ridge, and Utah County. And so maybe just as a background, what is defined as the Nebo Beltway is this roadway that starts here at an interchange in Payson, wraps around south through Payson, Salem, and up to Spanish Fork. So it's really to service a large area as a beltway. Obviously, this is a long-term planning document in a road here. You might notice, and it's not zoomed in, but up here at 2000 East and Highway 6, connecting to 2300 East, that is a portion that's been funded, and we're working through the design and right-of-way acquisition for that portion. Other areas will come as growth and development happens, and we need to service that. So as this roadway is being planned through Salem, they saw a need to plan that as their development is especially coming closer to the southern Spanish Fork border. They noticed that some of our master planning roadway documents didn't align just right with their roadways. So this is on the right-hand side over here. You'll see Salem's full master plan. A little bit zoomed in over here, this Woodland Hills Drive connection up through the county and 2300 East is what their master plan contemplated. As you go to Spanish Fork, that same roadway, starting up here at 2000 East Highway 6, down through, contemplated going along Powerhouse Road to connect to Woodland Hills Drive. So Salem City went to Mountain Land Association of Governments, received some money to do a study to look at the entire length of it, around $350,000. There is a local match required by that, and Salem's asked the other city partners that are impacted by this to participate in that cost. So we see this as a great benefit. Really, it's to plan around the growth that is coming to our county and trying to anticipate that. We're hoping the study will include interim measures as well. Clearly, the full roadway is not going to be able to be funded and built in the near future, but over time, looking at options of how to match that growth. So to Spanish Fork City, that's around just over $5,600. So,
questions for Corey on this?
I don't have a question, but there is a chance that my firm pursues this project, so I'm going to recuse myself from this vote.
Perfect. I guess this is a little bit of a pitch for residents if they want to. I know sometimes when we draw lines on maps that are big long-term things, it gets people a little worried about what that is. Again, this is a 2050 plan here that takes time to come together. But if residents do want to go to some regional significance, I think the maps that MAG puts out on their website are fantastic maps that you can scroll back and forth and see what's currently there, what's maybe planned for the future. And that plan comes together as property owners change and things change. And so anyway, I appreciate you putting the context on this, that this is long-term planning. And I think we, along with the other South Utah County cities, do really well in planning together. That even though we've ripped on Payson a couple of times tonight, we're not building a wall. They're our neighbors, and our traffic flows through all of our communities together well. So I appreciate the mayors from those other and councils from those other cities as well.
Yeah, and really the goal is, are we planning the same cross section? Does it connect at city boundaries well? And that's the goal. So.
Makes sense.
Thanks.
Thank you, Corey. If there's no other questions for Corey, I'd entertain a motion on item G with Councilman Marshall's statement of recusing himself.
I move to approve the resolution for the interlocal agreement, Nebo Belt Loop Corridor Study, recusing Councilman Marshall.
Second.
Motion made by Councilman Took, seconded by Councilman Cardin. Roll call vote here. Councilman Euler?
Yes.
Councilwoman Beck?
Yes.
Councilman Cardin?
Yes.
And Councilman Took?
Yes.
Okay. Item G is approved.
Thank you, guys.
Takes us to 10A, a general plan follow-up. I did want to say really quick before Dave starts here, we mentioned the commissioners that are coming off the Planning Commission and the ones coming on. The other commissioners, I think it's worth noting in that, especially with this project, they've been involved in heavy discussions and spent a lot of time away from their jobs and families to help be in this discussion too. So Todd Mitchell, Mike Clayson, Shauna Warnick, Michelle Carroll, and John Mendenhall, and Joseph Ernest, that'll be replaced with Dave Woodhouse and Paul Dayton coming on there. We appreciate their contributions. I know you do too, Dave, but just want to publicly thank them again for the work they've done so far and will continue to do in Spanish Fork.
Mayor, I really do appreciate that. Spanish Fork is very fortunate to have the Planning Commission that we've had, and going forward, looks like it's going to be great as well. That is a big asset for a community. Very committed people, very caring people, rational, level-headed. We're fortunate. And this project is something that the state code really puts in the lap of planning commissions to prepare a general plan, I think is the language that you find in state law. But before we get more into that, tonight, ultimately, I want to chart a path from where we are now to getting this project ready for the council to adopt it. I want to get it ready, and then you as the council can take whatever time you want, mulling it over, requiring edits, or whatever that case might be, in order to get comfortable adopting it. I'm just trying to get it to where it's ready. So that means fine-tuning drafts, scheduling public hearings, holding public hearings, and then effectively just turning it over to the council. Planning Commission will play a role in that. Again, I'll touch on that in a minute. By way of the general plan project, just high-level recap on a couple of different things. This is a little bit unique in that what we have hired a consultant to help us with is not just to update our general plan, but also to do a station area plan project. Those originally were envisioned to happen lockstep with one another, follow the same time frame, different things like that. Late last summer, a decision was made that, hey, kind of makes some sense to split these, at least for timing purposes, and to put them onto separate tracks, and we've done that. That being the case, we continue to meet with the consultant team every couple of weeks. That team has MAG employees, UTA employees, or consultant folks on those calls. It's a really collaborative effort to put together an area-specific plan that addresses land use with a pretty high level of detail. Again, talking about the station area plan for a part of the community where we think potentially someday a commuter rail stop will be. The general plan side of it, which is what I'm going to focus on tonight, is different. It's a higher level perspective on the future of the entire community. And I think there are a couple of things that are worth noting about that. So just to reference Utah Code, municipalities shall prepare and adopt a comprehensive long-range general plan. And then you can read the two things that are specified there. The point I want to make with this is pretty broad, and municipalities are given a lot of latitude as to what a general plan looks like. And when I say general plan, I mean, and most often people are talking about the land use side of things, land use element of the general plan. We have other things like a parks and recreation element of the general plan, transportation element of the general plan, moderate income housing element of the general plan, that type of a thing. We're just talking land use here. And that's most often what people reference when they say general plan. Again, kind of skipping down in the state code a little bit, and again, to emphasize what ultimately you can decide is how comprehensive the general plan is, to what extent does it address different things, how it's formatted, and all of that. And a lot of latitude. State law provides that. And furthermore, and I'll move on after this, but that is a very diverse list of things that municipalities can choose to address in their general plan if they choose to. Again, for what we're talking about, it's primarily land use and the council's future vision for land use. So, to get to where we are now, and I'm coming at this conversation tonight and will in future council meetings. I think this is something that we'd like to devote some time to, each of at least your next 3 or 4 meetings, by way of presenting material in draft form before all the I's are dotted and T's crossed, to get your input so that when we do hold public hearings, we will have had an opportunity to present something to the public that they can digest and come ready to speak to. The consultant group that we've been working with is great. And with that, they've given us a lot of material that could be included in the general plan. And this is where maybe I'd like to start to have some dialogue tonight. I have thought a lot, leading up to the meetings that we had over a few days here a couple of weeks ago and before, about what this project really should be based on what I've heard each of you say. For some of you, I'd have to go back years relative to why I have understood that you wanted to invest the resources and the time into updating the city's general plan. And in a nutshell, I would describe it something like you want a document that provides you guidance when you make land use decisions. Not something that necessarily makes the decisions for you. Some of that has some built-in latitude. You can apply reason and maybe common sense as individual things are presented, but you're looking for a guide. And I realize I'm maybe oversimplifying when I say that, but like for me, high level, that is how I would describe it, which incidentally is also what we're looking for as staff. We're looking for you to adopt a guide that kind of gives us marching orders. So if something lines up with that guide, we know that we're at least in the ballpark with what the city council might expect. And then that translates as well into guidance for the people that we talk to, that come into our office with an idea and they say, well, what about this for this property? Well, maybe we refer to, the third paragraph on page 16 and there's some insight there that we can claim and share with somebody and make a process predictable and easy for everybody. How far off am I with that? Trying to really, again, just get to the important part of things.
Yeah, you're right on.
Spot on, Dave.
Okay.
Pretty close, Dave.
Okay. I'm going for pretty close. I did say horseshoes and hand grenades. I'll take pretty close. I appreciate that. And that's trying to simplify things as much as I can. With that said, with what the consultants have given us, I think we have 3+ parts of a general plan that we need to review with you over the course of the next couple of months on a similar track with the Planning Commission. And there they are. It's policies, it's descriptions of land use, and that's the part that everybody cares about the most, which frankly, to some degree for us, ends up taking a back seat to some of the other stuff in terms of importance. But boy, you put colors on a map, and that gets people's attention. Until you've put colors on a map, there's stuff just, it's hard to energize people to talk. Goals and policies, when you get to the map. So I get that. The other part, and Kevin, I will probably credit you for this, but not you alone.
Not you alone.
Certainly in terms of providing guidance, I mean, I've had conversations with other council members as well that, where things can be quantified, where it's not just a subjective, this is our preference, maybe we're focusing on needs. The consultant team, they took an approach where they predicted, based on some data, what maybe the demand for housing would be in the community at a date out into the future, said, hey, in order to allow for this much construction in the community, these are some approaches that you could take by way of different scenarios and that sort of a thing. I think that becomes a very important part of providing guidance. So that being the case, the data, ultimately what we would have as support for the other parts to some degree comes after we get more of the other parts put together. And I guess you could say kind of a chicken and egg scenario there, but I think that's an important part that we'll visit as well. So those different parts relative to land use policies, again, general plan, looking to touch on subject matter at a high level, but getting precise enough to where there's meaningful guidance. These are the 7 different categories that right now we have spelled out in the general plan. Transportation's a little bit redundant, you could say, because we have a whole separate element of the general plan that addresses transportation. Nonetheless, we'll talk more about that and why I think that's an important component.
Hey, Dave, as we've been going through this with the public, have the policies been talked about, or has it just been the map to date?
I would say indirectly the policies have been talked about, certainly. But we have not presented the policy verbiage for anybody to review yet. With what we have today, I'm hesitant to do that. Not that I'm holding back or don't want to share things, but I think we need to get things a little bit more baked before it would be appropriate to solicit, input. Be jumping the gun. And incidentally, well, I'll hold the thought that I have about where we're at on that. Again, to hearken back to the language from the state code, certainly not limited to something like this. Largely these categories, with really one big exception there, the transit-oriented development, they have an origin in the city's current general plan. And that's not entirely accidental. In fact, that really coincides with input that we have received about what the community wants to see done in the future, which is keep most of Spanish Fork growing like it is. Don't change. And again, I'll talk more about that. Land use designations, not a lot of change there. We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago about that. In fact, I've gone back and we made some tweaks based on feedback that you gave me then. We'll talk about a few very unique parts of the community. I don't plan to get really deep into it tonight. Areas where I think the community, by way of the community engagement, public input, things that have happened, delivered a clear message, which is we are comfortable with change in these areas. I call those gateways. We're talking about the area around what's going to be the 2700 North interchange, or maybe a prospective interchange at Center Street and I-15, or I'm calling it the 1900 South interchange, Salem Benjamin direction, and that area. But for those three areas, we'll call the rest of the community stable neighborhoods. If anybody can come up with better phraseology, we welcome it. But I think that title does connotate very well what we heard, which is people aren't excited about sweeping change. People want to see where growth can still happen in the rest of the community, growth to happen in a fashion that would mirror what has happened in recent years or decades, which essentially means that the land use map part of this stays the same for much of the community, but for those gateways. Very much so a work in progress, but if you took a peek right now at our current land use map, you'd see a whole lot of things that are similar. And we already have changes to what is shown there, contemplated. So I do show this tonight with a little bit of reservation, but certainly a part of what needs to be worked on going forward. And again, the gateway area around the 27 North interchange, here where we're working on the station area plan, and then Salem Benjamin interchange down to the south, and so forth. So I want to start to touch on a policy aspect of the general plan tonight, kind of prime the pump a little bit, and also to get some feedback for me tonight that I can go to work on over the course of the next several days. As we get towards public hearings, I think there are some things that we need to have some express conversations about. This is a start of that list. And I think some of these could be really quick conversations. A couple of weeks ago, we talked about the annexation policy boundary. I'm not going to suggest that change, but I think we need to hear the council say, keep it the same, or look at potentially changing it in some way or another. So that's a question that in some formal setting I'd present for you guys to consider. Growth management boundary, I want to talk more about that tonight. Creating a new designation for environmentally sensitive lands. We have a few areas in the community, particularly hillsides, like just pick out a couple of examples up above Powerhouse Road, maybe south of the golf course, or some areas around where the windmills are, or even maybe some of the hillside that's on either side of the river bottoms, areas that may not be appropriate for development. Right now, we really don't have a land use designation that is applicable for areas where, because of some maybe geologic concern or flood hazard or fault, because that's geology, various things like that, it might make sense to consider a different way to describe those areas on a land use map. And that's something that at some point in time I want to bounce off Vaughn, because their concerns do enter into those conversations by way of, hey, you've said on your general plan that my property has no value, and that is something to be considered as well. To date, any of those areas we've simply identified as agriculture. And anyway, that's part of that yet to come conversations. Again, chicken and the egg with data, maybe adjusting the map based on numbers and that type of a thing. And then, probably by early summer, the other part of this will be coming along the station area plan. I've told you collectively, and recently I've repeated it to some of you, and Seth and I have talked about how when the curtains get fully pulled back on the general plan project, I am concerned, a little dramatic here, I think it's going to be kind of a thud, because it syncs up well with what we've heard, which is that the community doesn't want a lot of change. So there will be a lot of what's been seen before with the general plan. Stationary plan is going to have a very different presentation, and I think it's going to get a different level of attention, and there's going to be something of a wow factor there that we're not talking about, in my view, with the general plan, unless you're just extremely impressed with the community engagement and public input process that we went through that validated how the community feels about growth in Spanish Fork. And I am somewhat impressed by that. I think things sync up. So again, before we touch on one other thing, this is the schedule that we intend to follow. So in your next meeting, doing a deeper dive on the land use policy side of things. Plan to deliver draft policies for you guys to consider in advance of your meeting, probably with the agenda, so the week before, if not sooner. By way of volume, probably talking about a dozen pages of text. So hopefully not too overwhelming. And similar conversations, I've already started with the Planning Commission, but the idea basically is start with the policies, then we get into the land use designation side of things, which is basically just a description of what maybe a gateway land use designation would look like. Maybe a refined description of the mixed use designation. For a lot of the designations that we already have, it's a matter of, hey, go drive around the Sierra Bonita Elementary School. That's what we mean by low density residential. And so fairly straightforward in that type of a thing, and so forth. The goal being May, to get it ready for public hearings then. That means mid-April. Things are available for the public to review and so forth. So any questions or concerns about that? Okay. Growth management. This is the draft policy that we have right now for growth management. That's way too many words to use. It's relatively early tonight, right? But still. So to summarize, again, the public input that we received through this project, and I mentioned that I think we get through other channels as well, is that the community feels like change has come fast. They'd like to see it slow down. I think there's a perception that growth is less deliberate than what I believe it to be, and I hope you guys feel that same way. I think there's a perception that growth is not managed. I see it differently, but yet also I acknowledge that for the most part, growth that's occurred in Spanish Fork for the time I've been here, getting close to 20 years now, the community, Spanish Fork City, has largely been reactive. And that also is largely how it works, right? Cities don't develop property. Cities don't solicit people generally and say, hey, we'd love it, if you built apartment buildings here or things like that. It's property owners that initiate that. In a nutshell, the idea is, and yeah, I'm going to kind of skip over that, but the idea is to articulate through very traditional kind of a setup how you would like to direct growth. And for tonight's purposes, at least, I just want to go back to one of the things that we talked about a few weeks ago, which shows up with this line right here. So that is the current growth boundary for Spanish Fork, that black line. The heaviest shaded stuff is in Spanish Fork today. The lighter shaded stuff is in the annexation policy, but not in Spanish Fork today. And I want to talk about the area, particularly on the west side of I-15. We talked about that a lot, and the feedback that we got was extremely helpful, put it lightly. So for me tonight, this is just kind of a quick gut check, and I want to throw out a couple of ideas. What I think we heard a couple of weeks ago, and I've talked with a couple of you since, and I think I have a better understanding now that for the area on the other side of I-15 to develop residentially, certain things would need to happen before you'd entertain a proposal. Maybe it's an annexation proposal. If the intent of the annexation is to build neighborhoods on the other side of I-15, it could be a subdivision proposal for some of the property that we have that's already in the community, whatever it might be. But the idea is to articulate by way of goal and policy what it would take for you as the council to be comfortable to entertain development on the other side of the freeway. The biggest example of that might be, and this is, I'm sure, my opinion, in my opinion, until work on a new interchange is to some degree underway, we cannot enhance access between each side of I-15 well enough for it to make sense to have neighborhoods on each side of the freeway. So articulating that as a criteria, or maybe it's other road construction. Very document he showed a minute ago, they showed Mount Loafer Parkway as being a means of significantly enhancing access to that side of the freeway. You guys have any other thoughts by way of how can we use this project to communicate whatever your expectations might be, or whatever limitations you'd want to put on developing on the west side of I-15?
Don't look at me.
Don't look at you. I think we discussed it at Midway pretty well, and that as far as west of Center Street, it doesn't make sense to develop or allow development if there's no easy access for our emergency responders, for other individuals to get from one side to the other. If they've got to go all the way north before they can go west and then get south to where a residential neighborhood is, and it increases response times or whatever that looks like, it doesn't make sense. How you communicate that to landowners, to the public, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the best way in a plan is to communicate that.
Better connectivity. I mean, and I feel like we're probably going to say a lot of the same stuff. So not necessarily to belabor the conversation. If we were to just include, for example, a section that talks about residential development on the west side of I-15, and were to just very, very explicitly say that, maybe a way of a policy, don't entertain annexation proposals for residential development until there are additional street connections. And I kind of don't want to beat around the bush. Interchange, is that the trigger? I mean, for me, that would be. I don't want to speak for you. That's why we're having the conversation. But just being that explicit, at least for that northern part of what we're talking about, is really helpful. Other thoughts, ideas?
An interchange checks that off the list, in my opinion, because UDOT is not going to build an interchange that doesn't go west. Right? When they build an interchange, it's going to connect north and south onto I-15, and you're going to have exits going both directions, east and west. And at that point, you now have that access, either going over I-15 from Center Street or being on I-15 and getting off, to where now you've got greater access to the west of the freeway.
I think connectivity is a huge piece of it, that service piece, but the other part is being able to provide the utilities and things that are needed on that area without us having to front a whole bunch of that money that's going to have to happen, because like we talked about, a sewer lift station that would have to be needed over there, or power, or those other items that are going to be necessary for that. And we're not talking about a huge area. We're talking about a pretty small geographical area that we're going to be investing lots of money for. I would think that there would have to be more upfront costs that maybe developers or other landowners are willing to put forward to for me to want to change that growth boundary.
Makes perfect sense. Perfect sense. It syncs up very well with language
I think
actually
that's
that we have currently.
When we started this, I didn't, in my head, understand that there was a policy component to the general plan and a map component to the general plan. In my head, I went right to the map like most people do, right? I think on the map, we should be very, very clear of if and when, whenever, whatever piece of property develops, it generally looks like this. But in the policy, we can be clear that we don't want to see annexation in this area until X, Y, and Z happens. So sort of back up our intent through words, not just the colors on the map. I think that's really helpful. I think, Kevin, you articulated pretty well that there's access is the biggest part over there. You all know how I feel. I don't really want to go over there anyway, but you certainly don't want to go over there if there's no access. That's my whole main point about not going over there in the first place. But I think that if you articulate it well in a policy statement about that area, that makes a ton of sense. If you keep the growth boundary parallel or next to I-15, that sends another message that, yes, we are willing to at some point annex further to the west, but for today, we don't have any intention of growing over there until such time as policy A2 is in place. So I think that's a really good way of doing it, and it's been like the last month when I'm like, oh, a light bulb moment. There's words in a general plan, land use plan, as well as a map. Stop it.
I know when we can hear Seth laugh, that's good.
It's a bad day. But it makes a ton of sense, too. Just like write it down and show our intent with here or wherever it may be. Like the Benjamin interchange. Like there's probably a policy statement that we want to make down there, that we want to encourage commercial development down there first or whatever it might be. So I think it makes sense. You send a good, clear message that here's the growth boundary. We don't want to go past it until such time as X, Y, and Z.
Thank you. Another, just I feel like it's more of a comment. I think ideally we'd be able to provide timelines like 2025 to 2030, this is going to happen, and so forth, maybe out into the future. That doesn't work because we don't know when things that would influence a timeline like that are going to come into play. But for example, using an interchange as a trigger, that does send a message to the world about timing. Nobody knows when ultimately an interchange would be constructed in the area that we're talking about. Could be 10 years, could be longer than that. We know it's not going to be in the next 2 or 3 years, right? So having things like that built in as triggers start to then formulate these potential time frames and that sort of thing, which, again, by way of being predictable and trying to provide some narrative guidance in a document, I think that, for me, that becomes really helpful as we talk to people about, hey, when's this going to happen? Or, when's the city going to start to approve this or that or whatever it is? Being able to fall back on that type of thing becomes helpful. That, again, we talked about it a couple of weeks ago. This helped me just put a finer point on some things that we can bring back, even deliver next week to talk about the week after that. I invite you guys, if there are things that you want to make sure that we don't miss, things that haven't already come up in any of the conversations we've had so far, next couple of months, right? I mean, we're hoping to get something to you that is yours, that you own, that not only are you comfortable with, but that you like. And as much as you can get excited about this kind of thing, you can get excited about this kind of thing. So please feel free to reach out anytime. Love to talk offline, or like I said, the plan is to take some time every couple of weeks, probably a little, as much as you're wanting to take in your meetings. And any questions for me now before?
I like how you laid it out. I like that we're going to talk about this consistently and get to get to more than just the map and other things. So I appreciate that, Dave. And now that you have gone through with the consultant that deeper dive, talk to the community, I think we can have a pretty good conversation up here and explain our thoughts around how we see it.
Yeah, I think you've set a table that makes it so we can have intelligent discussions about it. I do like these 3 points, these 4 points up here, really do set a framework from, especially going to the part that talks about urban services readily be provided. I think I've said this before to people, I don't know if in a public meeting, but as the kid that rode his bike from Palmyra Fields uptown to be in Kevin's neighborhood where he was a kid, and Shane was just privileged and lived in the city his whole life, wherever he lived and grew up and stuff. There was only a place to cross that you had to go over a railroad track, and then under a overpass that was a little sketch where you guys were always riding your bikes under. And the world's changed where a 12-year-old kid is not riding 12 miles, or not 12 miles, but a mile. 12, yeah, uphill both ways in the snow. But it's changed. You know, kids aren't riding their bike that far. So urban services out there, where if there's a subdivision going out there, boy, we don't want too many kids riding their bikes underneath the freeway to get over here to services necessarily. We want things happening over there, that obviously the connectivity that they can come into Spanish Fork and still experience all the things that we have here, but there's got to be some stuff out there too that make them connected as well, right? And not just a way to get over here, yeah, but things that can happen out there. You can play soccer out there. You can play baseball out there. You know, things like that. So I think these are good points to kind of build off of for sure.
You know, I really think, you know, and I think the conversation here will probably pretty quickly get wrapped up. And relative to things to talk about, I'm not sure that there's going to be a lot more. I think that when we do put a map out there, that's when some people are going to express, you know, probably, that's when we're going to get another level of feedback that's going to be really helpful. I'll put it that way. But again, you know, but for some of the higher level thoughts about where to go and when, a lot of the other pieces are just in place, and I'm looking forward to the conversations. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave. Appreciate that. Appreciate the good work of you and your staff and the time, and the Planning Commission again as well that have been involved here, and citizens too. So more to come. Okay. Any other items that need to come before this body before we go into closed session? If not, I'd entertain a motion to go into
Before I make my motion, I'll help Kevin out and say, control the animal population, have your pets spayed or neutered.
If you don't watch out, we're going to give him the animal shelter.
I move to adjourn to closed meeting to discuss the purchase, exchange, or lease of real property and pending or reasonable imminent litigation in the Explorer Room.
Motion made by Councilman Cardin.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Beck. Roll call vote. Councilman Euler.
Yes.
Councilman Cardin.
Yes.
Councilman Took.
Yes.
Councilman Marshall.
Yes.
And Councilwoman Beck.
Jesse, where'd you find that?
You saying yes?
Yes.
We're adjourned. Thank you.
The record show us a 4.